In-depth analysis of **, the German elevator society **, the mystery of social mobility from ascent to stagnation. A powerful work revealing the transformation of German society, with global sales exceeding 1 million, sweeping the European intellectual scene. Why does **, the German elevator society ** resonate so deeply with its elevator metaphor? Let's step into the sociological world of Oliver Nachtwey to explore the hidden codes behind Germany's shift from a golden age of mobility to class stagnation, and consider how it mirrors our own society. 1. The golden age of the social elevator. Post-war Germany was a land of social mobility miracles. From 1949 to the 1970s, West Germany's economic miracle was like a high-speed elevator, lifting countless ordinary people from the bottom to the middle class. The son of a craftsman became an engineer, the daughter of a farmer joined the white-collar workforce, and the social ladder seemed wide open. Nachtwey writes in the book, post-war Germany's social elevator ran at astonishing speed, with education and job opportunities convincing everyone that effort could change their fate. During this period, Germany's social market economy balanced capital and welfare, ensuring broad pathways for upward mobility. Take Hans Müller, for example, the son of a 1950s Ruhr Valley miner. With free vocational training and union support, he joined Siemens as an electrical engineer, tripling his annual income. His story was not unique. In 1960, 30% of German university students came from working-class families, with education serving as the engine of class mobility. The economic miracle was driven by post-war Reconstruction's labor demands and government policies. In the 1950s, West Germany's GDP grew by an average of 8% annually, with unemployment dropping to 1%. As companies like Volkswagen and BASF absorbed vast numbers of workers, creating a stable middle-class life. This success relied on the dual support of unions and the government. Unions secured wage increases through collective bargaining, nearly doubling real wages from 1950 to 1970. The government, through tax redistribution and welfare policies like free education and health care, reduced living costs. Nachtwey notes that Ludwig Erhard, the architect of the social market economy, championed shared prosperity, using high taxes and welfare subsidies to ensure even the working class could ride the elevator. For instance, the 1960s Economic Miracle Act invested billions of marks in vocational training and housing subsidies, enabling ordinary families to buy homes. This policy's success stemmed from a collective post-war belief: hard work could transform one's destiny. Through the Housing Promotion Act, the government subsidized nearly 1 million affordable homes, raising national homeownership from 45% to 65% between 1950 and 1970. Take Erika Strauss, the daughter of a Cologne baker, who in 1965 bought an affordable apartment through a government loan, escaping the rental trap. Her family joined the middle class, and her children accessed better education. Such policies not only improved living standards but also reinforced trust in the upward elevator. However, this prosperity masked regional disparities. Industrial hubs like the Ruhr Valley benefited from manufacturing growth, while rural eastern regions lagged behind. Nachtwey points out that post-war policies prioritized industrial revival, neglecting rural education and infrastructure. For example, Bavarian village schools were far less equipped than urban ones, limiting local youth's upward opportunities. This imbalance planted the seeds for later class divides. Moreover, while unions protected workers' rights, their influence was strongest in male-dominated manufacturing, often sidelining women and migrant workers. For instance, Turkish guest workers in the 1960s contributed to the economic miracle but struggled to join the middle class due to language and cultural barriers. Yet, Nachtwey reminds us that the elevator's smooth operation depended on specific historical conditions. Post-war Reconstruction needs, strong unions, and redistributive policies. These conditions were like the elevator's power system. Once the environment shifted, the elevator risked stalling. The 1973 oil crisis, for example, exposed Germany's reliance on external resources, slowing growth and foreshadowing potential crises. 2. Why the elevator stalled. By the 21st century, Germany's social elevator had largely stalled. Nachtwey attributes this shift to the impacts of globalization, automation, and the digital economy. First, Globalization reshaped the labor market. Manufacturing, once the backbone of the middle class, saw jobs outsourced to lower-cost Asian countries since the 1990s. According to the German Federal Statistical Office, manufacturing employment fell by 15% between 2000 and 2015, with low-skilled jobs hit hardest. Industries like textiles and steel suffered, turning the Ruhr Valley into a rust belt, forcing many workers to change careers. Second, automation and the digital economy deepened job polarization. Artificial intelligence and robotics replaced repetitive tasks like assembly line work and basic clerical jobs. Nachtwey cites a study by 30% of current German jobs could be automated. High-skill roles like software engineering saw soaring demand, but low-skill workers faced unemployment risks. This skills premium widened income gaps, with Germany's Gini coefficient rising from 0.9 to 0.3 to between 2010 and 2020, signaling growing inequality. The digital economy's platform model further transformed labor relations, with companies like Uber and Deliveroo fostering a gig economy that's flexible but lacks security. In 2020, about 7% of Germany's workforce was in the gig economy, with social security coverage only a third of that for traditional jobs. Take Maria Hoffman's case. She worked as an assembler in a Bavarian auto parts factory, earning €2,500 a month, enough for a middle-class life. But in 2018, her job was replaced by automated lines, forcing her into a supermarket cashier role at €1,500 a month, barely covering Munich's high rent. She laments, "Hard work used to mean moving up. Now it feels like being stuck." Nachtwey notes that this fear of downward mobility has become a widespread middle-class sentiment. Moreover, financialization has worsened inequality. Capital flooding into real estate has driven up housing prices, especially in cities like Munich and Berlin. This surge not only limited middle-class wealth accumulation, but also deepened generational inequality. The younger generation struggles to buy homes as their parents did. Take Lena Bauer, a 27-year-old marketing specialist in Munich earning €3,000 a month, whose rent for a one-bedroom apartment eats up 40% of her income. He says, "My parents bought a house easily in the 1980s. I can't even save for a deposit." German statistics showed that in 2020, home ownership among those under 35 was just 20%, down from 40% in 1980. Financialization's other consequence is wealth concentration. Nachtwey explains that real estate speculation and private equity have inflated asset prices, allowing the wealthy to reap high returns through property investments while ordinary families are priced out. From 2015 to 2020, the wealth share of Germany's top 1% rose from 25% to 30%. This polarization weakens the elevator's momentum, as wealth increasingly depends on inheritance rather than labor. For example, Hamburg real estate developer Karl von Berg, through family trusts, owns dozens of properties with millions in annual profits, a market inaccessible to ordinary workers. Nachtwey warns that this trend is shifting Germany from a labor society to a capital society. Between 2000 and 2020, major city housing prices rose by 70%, while wages grew only 20%. This gap makes it nearly impossible for young people and low-income groups to enter the housing market, further entrenching wealth disparities. Nachtwey argues that the profit-driven logic of financial capital clashes with the social market economy's fairness ideals, causing the elevator to stall or even descend. 3. Middle-class anxiety. The middle class, once Germany's stabilizer, now faces a shadow of decline. Nachtwey writes, "The middle class is no longer a safe harbor but an anxious arena." This anxiety stems from stagnant incomes, soaring housing costs, and job instability. Consider Carl Schmidt, a mid-level accountant in Berlin earning €50,000 a year, seemingly secure yet struggling to afford a home in a city with skyrocketing prices. From 2010 to 2020, Berlin rents rose by 60%, while Carl's salary grew only 10%. He and his wife delayed home buying, and their child's college costs add further strain. Carl's story reflects the broader middle-class predicament. Pew Research Center data shows that from 2000 to 2018, Germany's middle class, those earning 60% to 200% of the median income, shrank from 74% to 68%. Rising inequality has also fueled psychological stress. Psychologist Martin Bauer's research shows a 25% rise in anxiety disorders among the middle class over the past decade, partly driven by fears of status loss. Many middle-class families worry their children won't maintain their living standards, amplifying social unease. This anxiety also manifests in pessimistic expectations. A 2020 German Economic Institute survey found that 60% of the middle class believed their economic situation would worsen over the next decade. This pessimism erodes trust in social institutions. Nachtwey notes that the middle class increasingly resents both the elite and the underclass. For instance, during the 2015 refugee crisis, many middle-class families feared resources were being diverted, straining public services like healthcare and education. This concern wasn't unfounded. Federal Labor Ministry data shows that from 2015 to 2018, refugee integration programs consumed 5% of the public budget, tightening resources for schools and hospitals in some areas. Take Helena Mayer, a Frankfurt nurse earning €3,200 a month. She faced increased workloads due to hospital bed shortages from a rise in refugee patients, with longer shifts adding to her stress. She says, "I support humanitarianism, but the government seems to overlook our burdens." This sentiment fuels feelings of marginalization, eroding trust in policymakers. Nachtwey argues that the handling of the refugee crisis exposed flaws in social communication. The government failed to adequately consult the public, leading to misunderstandings and tensions. A 2016 poll showed 55% of Germans felt refugee policies harmed the middle class. This division has fueled populism, particularly in economically weaker eastern regions. Nachtwey stresses that rebuilding social trust requires transparent policy communication and fair resource allocation, or middle-class anxiety will deepen. This sentiment is amplified on social media, creating fertile ground for populism. Take Klaus Weigel, a Stuttgart high school teacher earning €4,000 a month. Initially supportive of open immigration, he grew frustrated when his daughter's school faced resource shortages due to an influx of refugee students. Klaus isn't a far-right supporter but feels the middle class's voice is ignored. Nachtwey argues this reflects a broken social contract. The middle class contributes taxes and labor but feels diminishing returns. 4. Bottlenecks in education and careers. Education was once the core engine of Germany's social elevator but now reinforces class divides. Nachtwey argues that Germany's tract education system entrenches stratification. Students are sorted at around age 10 into 3 school types: Hauptschule vocational, Realschule mid-level vocational, and Gymnasium university preparatory. Working-class children are often funneled into vocational tracks, while upper-middle-class kids dominate university pods. Ministry of Education data from 2019 shows only 15% of working-class children attended university, compared to 40% from middle-class families. Take Anna Klein, born to an immigrant family in Hamburg, her father a taxi driver. Despite excelling in primary school, she was tracked into Hauptschule, limiting her university prospects. Anna became a hairdresser, earning half the national average income. She reflects, "Teachers said vocational school suited me, but I never felt I had a choice." Nachtwey argues this early tracking turns education from a pathway to a class filter. The system's intent was to match abilities, but in practice, teacher biases and family background often dictate paths. The job market also faces bottlenecks. Germany's dual system of vocational training, combining school and apprenticeships, is renowned for producing skilled workers. Yet, the digital economy's demands have strained the system. Traditional trades like mechanical repair are being automated, while fields like data analysis require university degrees. Nachtwey cites German Economic Institute data. In 2020, 55% of vocational trainees worked in jobs unrelated to their training, highlighting skills mismatches as a hidden barrier to mobility. Take Joseph Baum, a young mechanic apprentice in Cologne. After 3 years of training, he found factory repair jobs replaced by robots. Attempting to pivot to IT, he lacked the credentials and settled for low-wage temp work. Joseph's plight reflects the vocational system's limits. Designed for the industrial age, it struggles with digital demands. Nachtwey argues that vocational training must incorporate broader skills like coding and data analysis to restart the elevator. Women and immigrants face additional career barriers. While Germany's gender wage gap is below the European average, it was still 18% in 2020. This gap is stark in high-skill fields. For example, female engineers in tech earn 15% less than men, partly due to unequal promotion opportunities. Take Sophia Weiss, a Stuttgart software engineer with a master's degree, repeatedly overlooked for promotions due to corporate biases. She notes male colleagues advance to management while she's stuck in technical support roles. Nachtwey argues this glass ceiling limits women's career mobility, reinforcing class divides. Immigrant job seekers face similar hurdles. Germany's complex credential recognition for non-EU immigrants forces many skilled professionals into low-end jobs. Take Abdullah Hassan, a Syrian doctor who immigrated in 2016. Due to language barriers and costly certification exams, he works as a nursing assistant, earning a quarter of his former profession's income. Nachtwey cites immigration office data. In 40% of immigrant professionals worked in jobs below their qualifications. This talent waste undermines individual ambition and social mobility. Germany needs streamlined certification and language support to unlock immigrants' career potential. Immigrants' hiring rates for high-skilled jobs are only 60% of native-born applicants. These structural issues further stall the social elevator. 5. The dilemma of the German model. Germany's social market economy, once hailed as Rhine capitalism, balanced efficiency and fairness. But Nachtwey argues that modern capitalism under globalization is eroding this model. Take the 2003 Hartz reforms under Chancellor Schröder, which relaxed labor regulations and cut welfare to boost competitiveness. The result was a surge in low-wage jobs, with their share rising from 18% to 20% between 2010 and 2020. Consider Frank Weiss, a Leipzig logistics worker. Post-reform, he shifted from a full-time contract to temp work, losing pension and healthcare benefits. He complains, "The government said reforms would make us competitive, but my life's less stable." Nachtwey notes that while reforms cut unemployment from 10% to 5%, they sacrifice middle-class stability, accelerating class divides. The rise in low-wage jobs has led to working poverty, full-time work that can't sustain a decent life. The German model also faces tensions between corporations and the government. Large firms like Siemens prioritize automation to cut costs, reducing jobs. Nachtwey cites Volkswagen's plan to cut 15,000 jobs by 2025 to invest in electric vehicles and AI. This efficiency-first approach clashes with the social market economy's fairness ethos. Corporations chase global competitiveness, while the government struggles to maintain welfare, leaving the elevator underpowered. Tax policy changes have also worsened inequality. In the early 2000s, Germany lowered corporate taxes to attract investment, reducing welfare funding. Nachtwey notes that from 2010 to 2020, public spending on education and healthcare as a share of GDP fell from 5.2% to 4.8%, weakening mobility's foundation. For example, Munich's public schools, strained by budget cuts, face larger classes and teacher shortages, impacting education quality. Another dilemma is declining union power. Post-war unions secured worker rights through collective bargaining, but globalization has slashed membership from 11 million in 1990 to 6 million in 2020. Nachtwey cites the German Trade Union Confederation. Lower coverage has weakened wage negotiations, leaving low-income workers with little bargaining power. This imbalance further stalls the elevator. 6. Cracks of anger and distrust. Class stagnation has not only reshaped the economy but also sparked deep social tensions. Nachtwey writes, "When the elevator stalls, anger and distrust become society's cracks." The rise of the far-right alternative for Germany and eastern regions reflects working-class frustration with elites. In 2019, AfD won 27% of votes in Saxony, surpassing traditional parties. Take Thomas Richter, an unemployed Dresden worker. After losing his factory job in the 2008 financial crisis, he turned to unstable gig work. Supporting AfD, he says, "Elites care only about globalization, forgetting ordinary people like us." Nachtwey argues this anger stems from a broken social contract. People work hard but see little reward. His wife, Christina, a cleaner, feels society undervalues low-skill work. "We clean hospitals daily but can't afford rent." This sentiment isn't unique to Germany. Nachtwey compares Germany's cracks to global trends like Brexit and Trump's rise in the US, all reflecting lower-class protests against inequality. Drawing on sociologist Ulrich Beck's risk society theory, Nachtwey notes that modern uncertainties like job loss, housing costs make people feel abandoned, pushing them toward extremism. Anger also fuels generational conflict. Young people envy the older generation's welfare era while despairing about their future. A 2020 Youth Institute survey found 65% of 18 to 30-year-olds believe they can't match their parents' living standards. This generational unfairness deepens social cracks. Take Hannah Schneider, a 25-year-old freelance designer in Berlin earning €2,000 a month, struggling to save while renting. Her situation reflects the gig economy's double-edged sword, flexibility but no stability. Nachtwey notes that the gig economy leaves young people unable to plan ahead. Labor Ministry data shows that in 2020, 70% of 18 to 35-year-old gig workers had no pension plans, and 50% couldn't afford health insurance. Hannah tried full-time jobs but found high barriers and fierce competition for stable contracts. She says, "I love the creative freedom of freelancing, but I'm constantly stressed about rent." This instability affects life choices. A 2020 Social Research Institute survey found 30% of young people delayed marriage or parenthood due to financial pressures. Hannah's boyfriend, Tobias, a freelance photographer, joins her in postponing family plans due to income volatility. This delayed life trend amplifies perceptions of generational unfairness, eroding trust in the social contract. Nachtwey argues that the gig economy needs stronger legal protections, like mandatory social security and minimum income standards, to ease young people's burdens. She complains, "Our parents had stable jobs and pensions. We're just scrambling for rent." Distrust also undermines public institutions. Trust in the government fell from 65% in 2000 to 45% in 2020. Nachtwey attributes this to opaque policies and elite disconnect. For example, Merkel's 2015 refugee policy, though humanitarian, lacked clear resource allocation details, sparking backlash from the middle and lower classes. These cracks make repairing the social elevator even harder. 7. Restarting the elevator. Despite the stalled elevator, Nachtwey remains optimistic, offering paths for individuals and society. First, individuals must adapt to new realities. Nachtwey suggests lifelong learning to upgrade skills, like Germany's career retraining programs helping unemployed workers enter fields like IT. Take Sophia Gross, a former Hanover textile worker who, at 40, retrained as a software tester through a government-funded coding course, doubling her income. She says, "I never thought I'd code, but learning opened new doors." Lifelong learning requires robust support. Germany's professional qualification program invests €1 billion annually in free skills training for workers. Nachtwey points to Sweden's similar programs, which keep unemployment below 6% while maintaining high social mobility. Individuals should also develop versatile skills like data analysis and communication to navigate shifting markets. For example, Max Krug, a former mechanical engineer, self-taught Python and became a data analyst, boosting his salary from €40,000 to €70,000. Second, society needs policy innovation. Nachtwey calls for restoring the social market economy's balance through higher minimum wages, education reform, and support for small businesses. Germany's minimum wage €12 are in 2022 falls below living costs. Nachtwey suggests raising it to €15. Education reform could follow Finland's comprehensive model, eliminating early tracking to give all students equal foundations. Baden-Württemberg's pilot reforms show promise, with a 10% rise in university enrollment for working-class children in 2020. Small and medium enterprises, accounting for 60% of German jobs, need tax breaks and innovation subsidies to adopt new technologies. For instance, a Stuttgart small factory used government subsidies to adopt 3D printing, preserving 50 jobs and entering new markets. Such technological leaps by small firms can create opportunities for low-skilled workers. Finally, Nachtwey stresses rebuilding trust. Community programs, corporate union partnerships, and transparent governance can mend social cracks. Munich's community employment program partnered with businesses to provide stable jobs for 5,000 low-income workers in 2020. Unions must also evolve, using co-determination to protect workers. For example, the IG Metall union secured retraining for 5,000 Volkswagen workers during layoff talks. Nachtwey highlights social dialogue as critical. Governments should explain policies, like refugee integration costs, through public forums to reduce misunderstandings. Denmark's Citizens' Assemblies model, where citizens and officials co-create policies, boosts trust and could work in Germany. In closing, Nachtwey writes, "The elevator may be stalled, but it's not broken. With collective effort, it can run again." Germany's story offers a global lesson. Facing class stagnation, individuals must embrace change, and society must rebuild fairness. We all stand in our own elevators, and the direction forward depends on today's actions. Wherever we are, Germany's tale reminds us that the hope for social mobility never fades. It awaits our wisdom and effort to awaken it.